Okay, so if you are anything like me, you have probably thought about this question before. What if we had super speed in real life? What would that look like? Well, in today's videos, that is exactly what I'm gonna be trying to answer. What would it look like if we had super speed in real life? Okay, so immediately we would fail. We would fail immediately because there's a lot of things that are trying to stop us. If you ask this question to someone, they would say that air resistance would be stopping you, plus your durability as well. Because if you were actually running that fast, your skin would be ripped off of your body and you would just die a horrible death. You also wouldn't be able to really run that fast because of the fact that your brain needs to be able to process the fact that you're running that fast. This is kind of a weird point to understand, but and it's something that I guess has been noted to with the super speed. But if you have the ability to run like 2,000 kilometers per hour, right? Let's say that you are in a location, right? Let's say that you're in point A, then you go to point B. I don't know what point B is. Let's just pretend it's like 2,000 kilometers away. It would take you 1 second to go from point A to B, but to you, it would feel like you blinked and then you just teleported because your brain would not be fast enough to actually see you traveling that distance. That's why your brain also needs to be able to fast enough to actually keep up with your speed as well. Next, you can also talk about if you say that your super speed is tied to, I guess, your nutrition or energy or whatever, then you would become hungry really fast. Like you probably just starve to death if, after running for a couple of seconds. So basically, the world does not want you to have super speed. It just doesn't. It doesn't work. Now, I don't really want this to be like a 1 minute video. So let's just pretend that all of these things have solutions and that these things don't actually bother us at all. So let's just pretend that these don't exist. So if you do that, what can happen next? Okay, well, next is where things become interesting because now we can actually try to ask ourselves the question, what would it look like if we had super speed in real life? Okay, so I'm gonna split this into two sections. Firstly, ask the question of if only we had super speed, right? And then secondly, what if every single person in the world had super speed? Okay, so let's start with number one first. If only we had super speed. So, first of all, and this is the most obvious point, the one that comes to everyone's mind, and that is that we can go anywhere we want pretty much instantly. This is not a debate. This is not like there's no caveat here. You can just go anywhere you want pretty much instantly. But with that said, even though I said that there's no caveats here, that was a lie. There are caveats here. Firstly, it's not a good idea to think of super speed as a power, as an like it's just this thing that you activate and then you deactivate and stuff just happens like magic. If it was real, it'd be more like a muscle that you actually use. And because of that, if you think about it like a muscle, that would also mean that if you had super speed, you would get tired after using it. You would definitely get tired after using it. And plus, there's also this another factor that the mindset behind super speed and using super speed to go to your destination is basically that you are running somewhere instead of actually driving there or whatever. But since it is a muscle, meaning you actually get tired, of course, I guess you are much faster, right? And you get to your destination faster. But if that is at the cost of your own stamina, or like, I guess you just being tired, is that a trade-off that you're okay with? I think that's kind of a personal question you have to ask because, you know, even I guess as a society, we walk everywhere. We don't run everywhere, right? Because running is annoying. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make is that to say that you would run everywhere to your destination is not true because we're kind of lazy, right? That's why it would be annoying to just be running everywhere. It would just be annoying, especially if it is like a muscle and you get tired using it. We can also, I guess, add on to this point and say that if you say that your super speed is tied to how fit you are, like how physically fit you are, well, then that also adds another layer of complexity here. And then whether you use your super speed or not, I mean, that just depends on you as a person. Okay, now this is a pretty obvious point, and the last point is that you wouldn't really be able to, I guess, take stuff with you, like your luggage and stuff, right? So if you're trying to go on a vacation or something, I mean, you can drag stuff with you, but it would definitely be annoying because the world is basically bending around you to allow you to have super speed. But that luggage would have air resistance. It also needs to be able to keep up with the speed as well. Maybe it might just get destroyed in the air, stuff like that. And that's kind of a line you have to kind of, I guess, draw on what is allowed and what isn't. So you could probably, I guess, do grocery shopping, but would you be willing to drag like luggage around with you across the ocean? Probably not. Okay, so this next point is actually extremely interesting. So I thought I'd pull up MS Paint just to illustrate it. Okay, so there's this idea with super speed that if you have it, then you can run across the ocean. You can run across the ocean. And this is a pretty good idea. I'm not going to disagree. But there's definitely a lot of interesting elements of it that I want to share. First of all, let's just imagine you're here. And let's say you want to go to Spain. Now, intuitively, when people think of super speed, they're basically saying that it's a straight line like this. You run this entire distance, whatever that distance is, and then you get to Spain, and then you're super happy because you wanted to have a vacation here, and then you were living here, then everything is good. And then you're also saying that this is the shortest path from here to here. That's why I drew a straight line. I mean, it's not technically because I'm pretty sure it'd be like a curved line, right? Because this is a map, because the Earth is round, right? But let's just say this is the shortest path. Now, even though this looks fine, it is not fine at all. And the reason for that is because your path would not look like this. It would not look like this. It would actually look more like this, or this, or this, or this, and stuff like that. And the reason I say that is because the ocean is very large. There's a lot happening here. This is not like a road or something that you can just walk across. There's a lot happening here. And there's like a 90% chance that you would get lost. You would actually just get lost. That's why if you actually wanted to, I guess, have a vacation and just travel across the ocean, you would just get lost in the process and you would just go somewhere else entirely. And this is not really a point of discussion because it's just true. It will definitely just happen. That's why to actually do this, you need to have good awareness of how to navigate the ocean, basically how to actually navigate it and get to your destination. But since the average person doesn't know how to navigate the ocean because they're not like Christopher Columbus or something, they would just get lost. And to even make things worse, right? Let's just say that to do this, it takes you 10, no, not 10, let's say 1 hour. And then to do this, which happens if you go lost, it took you, I don't know, let's just say that it was like this. Let's say it took you 2 hours. And let's say that this was 3 hours or whatever. Since your super speed is also tied to, I guess, your nutrition, how much energy you have as well, right? What is essentially happening here is that if you make a mistake, right, let's say you ended up here, then you try to go back, you wouldn't really have enough energy to run all the way back. Sorry, to here. You wouldn't actually have the energy to run all the way back. Meaning, eventually, if you just kept doing this, this, you will drown. You will drown because you run out of energy and you'll be stuck in the middle of the ocean and nobody will be there to help you and you would die. It's very tragic, but it will definitely happen. Okay, but with that said, there is definitely a solution to this, and that is that if your super speed, if your super speed is larger than a threshold, some number, then we can say that it could take you like 1 minute to do this. Then maybe it can take you like 1 minute and 45 seconds to do this. Sorry, 1 minute and 45 minutes, not seconds. And then to go here, it would take you whatever this time. But the difference is that if you actually have much more energy and you are much faster, you can pretty much just brute force this. You don't actually have to think so much. Like, if you have enough energy to pretty much like travel this entire world just like that, like many times over, then you don't actually need to care about you knowing how to navigate the ocean because even if you mess up, you can do this, 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 this. I mean, eventually, I guess you will reach your destination. I mean, actually, no. eventually you might reach your destination. I think that is kind of unlikely though, but the point I'm trying to make is that you are allowed to make more mistakes, so it wouldn't actually hurt you that much, and you wouldn't, and most importantly, you wouldn't actually drown in the middle of the ocean because you can pretty much make it to land every single time. But this is only if the amount of energy that you consume is not that much, and plus it is only if your super speed is over a certain threshold, so you don't actually need to waste that much time. Okay, so for my final point, I want to talk about something that is very interesting, and that is that your super speed will be hindered a lot by society and life in general. And the reason for that is because society is not really built around your super speed because only you have it. So I'll give an example of this, right? Let's say you want to go grocery shopping and you can run from your house to the grocery store in 1 second. Okay, so you do that. That's awesome. Well, first of all, well, when you get there, you have to stop and wait for the automatic doors to open, or I guess if it's a manual door, you manually open it. Then after you get inside, you buy whatever you want to buy. Then after you're done, you have to wait to check out. And then after you're done and you get out of the store, you can't really run at the same speed running back because the groceries that you have in your hands would probably not be able to handle your speed, right? So you have to run a little bit slower. And the point I'm trying to make is that your speed is so high, but there are things in real life which are limiting you such that you can't actually use your super speed to its highest extent. And so you constantly have to turn on your super speed and do whatever, then turn it off, then turn it on, turn it off, and that process would become extremely annoying. A good analogy of what this looks like is that imagine you are driving a car, right? Imagine you're driving a car, and but every 5 meters you turn the car on, you drive it, then after 5 meters you turn it off, wait a couple of seconds, then turn it back on, drive 5 meters, and then do that over and over again. And in this case, you are the car because you're super fast, but you constantly have to stop because they are overhead in society and just life in general, which are not really helping you, I guess, use your super speed in a extremely freedom-like way, which is just extremely annoying. It is just extremely annoying. Okay, so that's kind of all I have to say for this section. So let's talk about what if everybody had super speed? What would happen then? Okay, so firstly, earlier I said that cars would exist and they would exist for two reasons. Firstly, they're extremely convenient because just because you have super speed does not mean you would use it all the time, right? Because you don't run everywhere, right? You maybe only really run somewhere if you are late to something, maybe you're gonna miss a train or something, right? That's why some of the only situations you really run, but otherwise you walk everywhere. And it's similar here where you are taking the path of least effort unless the thing you want to do reaches a certain threshold for when you're like, okay, now I'm fine exerting effort, then you are like, okay, now I will, I guess, run, or in this case, use super speed. And I think the same, I guess, mindset would apply. And secondly, only you had super speed before. Everybody else didn't have super speed, so cars would still exist for everybody else, right? But if everybody had super speed, then the question is, would cars still exist? And in my opinion, they still would. They still would. And the reason for that is because, again, you want to take the path of least action, right? And cars are extremely convenient. And that is pretty much I think, the biggest reason. But even outside of that, cars would still have things that can help us in the long run. Like they can help us transport luggage, which just because they have super speed does not mean we want to be dragging around with us, right? Now, with that said though, I think that the dynamics of cars would definitely be very different. Now, I think a very easy example of this could be that you could say that there would be a bias towards bigger cars which can hold a lot of, which have a lot of space, right? So you can put a lot of stuff in them. Or basically they have a good fuel economy. Or basically just cars which are extremely practical because that is the reason why we be using them, right? But on top of that, I think the more interesting element to this is that, in my opinion, the speed limit I guess, the speed limit in general when driving would be raised to an extremely high number. And the reason for that is because of two reasons. Firstly, if everybody had super speed, their brain could process the speed as well, right? Meaning that they would have much higher tolerances for higher speeds, right? And honestly, they would feel more comfortable going at a much higher speed as well. But on top of that, since everybody is also durable because of the super speed, nothing would really happen to them even if they crashed. I mean, if you crashed, nothing's gonna happen to you because you're durable enough to run, because you're durable enough to run like 5 times faster than the car can drive, right? And because that, you could say that cars would become much more disposable. And I think that that's definitely kind of weird to think about. And I think crashing the car would also become very trivial because you're not losing anything. You're losing money, right? But you're not losing your life. You wouldn't lose or anybody's life, right? I mean, you would only do damage to buildings and stuff, right? But there wouldn't be any injuries involved because if you have super speed, you're pretty much like Superman. That's how durable you are. Next is kind of a point that I talked about earlier, and that is his idea of overhead in society that stops us from actually using our super speed. This would no longer apply because before this existed because only we had super speed and nobody else had it. But since everybody had it, then this would definitely no longer apply. So basically, maybe doors would be somehow different to accommodate with our speeds. Maybe they might be automatic, but if they were, then they might have to open much faster. Or maybe they are like normal doors, but maybe they can be opened with a lot of force without, I guess, being destroyed. Stuff like that, right? A better example would be that I think elevators and escalators would just not exist because this is a question of again the idea of path of most convenience, and it is convenient to use the elevator or escalator because because it's faster than using the stairs, but it also you're not exerting much effort. But in this case, if you take the stairs, it would take you 1 second to get to your destination. You are exerting a little bit of effort, but it is not that much compared to waiting in an elevator for like a couple of minutes or escalator, right? So I think because of that, escalators and elevators would just not exist. Okay, so this third point has to do with this idea of our perception of time. And what I mean by this is that usually when we think about how long something takes, right, we say that if it takes like 1 minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes, like you say, I'll be there in five, I'll be there in 10, that that's not too much time. But if something takes like 30 minutes or an hour, then you're like, okay, that's taking a long time. But if your super speed made it so that a lot of things could happen almost instantly, then for society, it would be normal to say that things would take a couple of seconds. It would take 10 seconds or 15 seconds or maybe a minute, but longer than maybe 5 minutes would be too much, right? And that would come again because of the fact that everybody can run super fast. Now the question then is that would these people who are so used to this, I guess, very fast time, then feel torture when they have to wait for like an hour or 2 hours, 3 hours or whatever, because of the fact that to them a short time is like a couple of seconds. I'm not sure, but in my opinion, probably not. And the reason for that is because in society, not everything will be able to be solved by having high super speed. I'll give an example of this, right? So computers will still be as fast as they are now. And what I mean by that is that you could definitely type much faster on the keyboard because you have super speed, but the computer can only take in information at the same rate. Or I guess a more easy example is that if you open Photoshop and it takes like a minute to open, it's going to take a minute to open even in the universe where everybody has super speed, right? Or I guess another example is that if you're stuck on a problem, it could be any problem. Maybe you're stuck in a problem in an exam and it takes you an hour to solve it because it's just really hard or whatever. Or maybe it takes you 30 minutes, right? Doesn't really matter. You would still be stuck on it for the same amount of time in the universe where everybody has super speed. That is not really something that you can super speed your way out of. But with that said, there is such a large disparity between what you consider short time versus what you consider a long time that maybe it might affect you somehow. I'm not really sure. So I wrote a lot more, but I don't know if I feel like this video is far too long already, so I'm just gonna wrap it up here. With a very quick point, and that is about sports, and that is that every sport would be different. This is very much dependent on the sport, but generally speaking, it'd be like Superman is playing at every sport. It's meaning that the scores you would achieve at every sport would be much higher, much higher. It is very, I guess, dependent on the sport. Well, I'll give an example with soccer, right? Um, if you had super speed, then you could kick the ball much further away because if you have super speed, then you can move your limbs really fast as well, meaning you can generate more power with a shorter distance. So you could kick the ball much further away. Um, on top of that, you could also run the entire field in a couple of seconds. So it would be kind of weird to think about. But at the same time, you would be able to, the audience would be able to keep up with that speed as well because they also have super speed. So maybe it might just all cancel out. So maybe it wouldn't actually look too weird, except for the fact that, you'd be able to kick the ball out of the stadium. I think that would definitely be really weird to think about. Okay, I think that's kind of all I have to say. There was a lot more that I wrote, but I feel like I'm just talking for a long time, so I'm gonna end it here. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if there's some things, some ideas that you have about what it would look like and all that stuff. But that's kind of all I have to say. I'll catch you guys in the next one.